Thank you very much, Shant. Sırpazan Hayr, De Hayr, Sireli Havadasyalmer, dear faithful. As Deacon Shant already said, we are going to talk about and present the proclamation of His Holiness that He gave this year, a unique color and message for each of us to focus on. And this year's proclamation, as you see, is the year of human resources preparation. And in his proclamation we read that His Holiness says, since 2003, we have dedicated each year to an event, development, value, or concern in our collective life. And that means that for these 10 and more years, His Holiness focused and give us a specific item, specific concerns that will give us to work as a community, as a diaspora, as Armenians, to give a specific role in our lives. And when we see in these years of proclamations, we see that the first year His Holiness gave the year of the Bible, then the year of the Armenian family, the year of national demand for justice, the year of Armenian school, the year of Armenian language, the year of Christian education, the year of youth, the year of the Armenian woman, the year of Armenian child, the year of the Armenian book of Revelation, the year of the Armenian mother, the year of elderly, the centennial of the Armenian genocide, the year of service, the year of renewal, the centennial of the First Republic of Armenia, the year of Armenian press, the year of Armenians with special needs, and the year of Artsakh. And the past 2 years, His Holiness focused and specifically invited us to look into diaspora, proclaiming the 2022 the year of diaspora. And last year, He gave a second chance, a second year, as the year of diaspora, to focus on ourselves, self-examination and reorganization, inviting all of us as individual Armenians in diaspora to look into our lives, and also as organizations to reorganize ourselves. And because of that, specifically working with diaspora and working with the needs of diaspora, this year, 2024, His Holiness proclaimed the year of Human Resources Preparation Year, which is a unique and very important topic that we should focus as people who live in diaspora. In his proclamation, he emphasizes and says, the storage of human resources in all facets of Armenian society has started to manifest itself. This means that there is a gradual decline in the number of individuals who possess expertise, experience, and accountability in every community. And as we focused on diaspora, as we focus on our organizations, as we focus on our church and community at large, we understand that His Holiness' concern is actually a part of an ongoing issue in diaspora. And His Holiness invites us to give a thought, to have a focus on this specific issue that will lead us in the future. Because this concern is not just one-time concern, it's not only this year's concern. Human resources is something that goes beyond the time, that goes beyond for a year. It is a resource that goes into the community for years, for life. That is why His Holiness invites us to focus on this particular issue in our community life. And he also underlines, says, all religions and civilizations have devoted special attention to humans as a thinking, acting, ruling and reaching reality in the life of society with their active spirit. That is why, as community, as diaspora, it is a pivotal, a very important part of our life, the human resource. Every single human existence, presence in our community, every hand in our community is important. Because our communities they were built with people. They were built with humans who gave their talents, who gave their time, who gave their selves to build our communities, to build our churches, to build what we have today. And now that we realize the decline of that resources, that means there is a very, very existential issue in our diaspora and in our communities. That is why we focus this year to take the message of His Holiness, to underline and to share with our people, to make it clear the essential issue of the human resources in our everyday life in diaspora and in Armenia. And His Holiness invites us to categorize very important two parts of human resources. The first one involves our human resources who are far from mainstream of Armenian life, which means we have special people with special talents and knowledge who are far from our Armenian community, who live away from our community. They are doctors, they are lawyers, there are many other people, specialists, who have a very knowledgeable and very talented presence in everywhere, but not in our Armenian life. So His Holiness invites us to focus on that part as well, to invite all these experts in our lives, in our communal life, asking their help, integrating them in our church's life. And the second one is preparation of new human resources. One that exists outside of the Armenian life, invite them, but also work in our church life, in our communities, to prepare that human resources, to invite our young generation into these challenging times to use their talents, helping them to grow in their talents, to grow in their special areas, and then help the community itself. And His Holiness also highlights and says, what steps can be taken to invigorate the diaspora's commitment to training and developing human resources in the methodical and sustained manners. It is important to recognize that this isn't a sole responsibility of any single entity, but rather a collaborative effort that involves a variety of stages and initiatives. In this regard, His Holiness highlights some structures and resources that can play a pivotal role in advancing the foundation of human resources development. And in his proclamation, His Holiness gives us many different structures and points that the community can work on bringing the human resources in our community, inviting those who are outside and building those who are here working on our youth. And the first thing that he emphasized is the family. The family, as we all know, is the solid foundation of the formation of Armenian person within the family. And it is important because we all know that the first step that our children take, the first step that our children learn, the first thing that they see and understand and take into their consideration is the family. Therefore, if the parents do not be careful, if the parents do not encourage their children, if the parents do not help their children to grow in a sense of helping the community, being part of the community, being part of the church, it will be challenging. That is why His Holiness emphasized that the first step into bringing and forming human resources is the family. Because family is the foundation of the church and community. The family's life is sustained and guided by Christian values and traditions His Holiness highlights in his book of the Armenian Church. Therefore, it is important for each of us, here in this church and out there in the diaspora, to be careful and to be very responsible parents to our children, inviting them, encouraging them, leading them into their future community, into their future life as part of the larger family, which is the church itself. Therefore, the first item, the first step that His Holiness highlights is the family. The second one is, of course, the church. The church is the storage furnace of our spiritual, moral, and national values and the source of revitalization. Of course, the church has always been the center of a community, because all the communities, especially the Armenian communities, they all were built around the church. In our diaspora, when we go to our community centers, when we go to places when there are Armenians, we always see that everything was built around the church. And the church became a center for Armenian community, not just being a center as a spiritual center. The church was and always been the center of spiritual, cultural, Armenian identity, and all other things. Which means the church also invites all our young people into a stage where they start working on themselves and becoming a part of this community, becoming the human resources of this community, working for this community, working for your community, working for Armenian community. That is why the second step that His Holiness highlights is the church. He also emphasizes and says, it is important because of the close identification with the total life of the people and the leading role it plays in all dominions and aspects of the nation's life. The Armenian church is the people's church par excellence. And if the church is a people's place, that means the human resources that will be built, formed, and prepared is the church itself. But first of all, the families should invite these young people to the church, so the church can take the responsibility, encouraging, helping, and also leading them to become the human resources of our communities. The third one is an important thing that may not be in the United States, but His Holiness emphasizes that the seminary of our church, which is in Antilyas, Bikfaya, is and has a pivotal role in building and preparing human resources, human people who serve our communities. And he says, the goal of our Holy See Seminary continues to be the formation of clergy, teachers, and intellectuals imbued with spiritual values and called to serve the nation and the church. His Holiness emphasized on seminary because we all know that especially in diaspora, in all our prelacies, in all our churches, all the prelates, all the clergies, the derheirs and harsubs, they all went through the seminary. They all get their education. They all get their spiritual wellness through the Armenian seminary in Lebanon. And it is important for each of us to help seminary, to support seminary monetarily, also sending our children to seminary. As we all know, nowadays it is so challenging to have clergy, to prepare clergy, to form clergymen. If we do not send our children to seminary, there will be no next and future generation to serve in these communities. And it is why His Holiness highlights and emphasizes on a seminary, because it is one of the most important part in our human resources, where we all were, starting from Serpazan, myself, and Deray, we all were formed in the seminary. And the next one is the Armenian school. The human resources is not something that is outside of the Armenian realm or Armenian life. Human resources, as His Holiness emphasized, is something that we have some outside in the world, but also we have to form and prepare in our communities as well. And therefore, one of the important parts in our Armenian community to form and have the human resources is the Armenian school. That is why he says the Armenian school is naturally one of the essential institutions in forming human resources. Unfortunately, some parents nowadays tend to show indifference towards it. Especially in some communities, the Armenian parents, instead of sending their children to Armenian school, they prefer to send their children to a public school or other private schools. That means taking away from Armenian community the human resources that will build, that will come to preserve our communities at large. Therefore, to have our children formed as Armenians, formed, getting ready, and be ready to serve our communities, to serve our church, is the Armenian school. And in his book, The Armenian Church, His Holiness says, the Armenian school fosters the self-understanding of the students and deepens their faithfulness to the Armenian Christian traditions and values. That is how, in the Armenian schools, our young generation form and become the human resource for our communities. It protects their Armenian Christian identity and preserves the treasury of the nation's spiritual, moral, national, and cultural values. Therefore, the school is not simply an educational institute, the Armenian school. It is, in a sense, the extension of the church and a little Armenia outside of Armenia. Therefore, the school is a very important part of our human resource formation, because it is part of the church. It is a small church itself. It is an Armenia, little Armenia itself. It is even a little family itself. And if we do not send our children, if we do not encourage our children into getting into the Armenian schools, that means our human resources are in jeopardy. Therefore, His Holiness highlights these things and invites us to think all the stages that will invite all of us to form, build, and help into the human resources. The next one is organizations. We all know that in diaspora we have so many organizations. And all these organizations, they are in a sense, in its way, are also part of building and forming human resources. And he says, all the organizations that are active within Armenian life, political, charitable, cultural, athletic, social, and many others, are in their own way special schools for the preparation of human resources in many different ways. Some of them are politically raising and forming our youth, becoming human resources for our communities, others in a charitable way, cultural way, athletic way, and many other ways. So each organization has a specific value and place in our communities, especially building our human resources. The next one is specifically highlighted for, again, for Lebanon, but we should also emphasize on the importance of having Armenian studies courses in the United States as well. Here, His Holiness emphasizes on Armenian study courses that happens in Lebanon, especially in Antilles, but we urge our communities at large to have these kind of courses, Armenian study courses in diaspora, in many other countries, especially in the United States, inviting all our young people, Armenians, to specialize in Armenian language. So in our future life, we have Armenian teachers, because if we do not have Armenians who specialize in Armenian studies in diaspora, in the Armenian schools, we will not have that human resources to help our schools, to teach our kids the Armenian spirit, the Armenian identity. Therefore, the Armenian study courses are important, as His Holiness highlights. And in a couple of sentences he says, after 15 years of organizational development, the Armenian Studies Center of the Catholicosate operates in a more organized and its convenient manner, offering a wide range of subjects and the presence of experienced teachers invited from Armenia and diaspora. And we also need all these things, this experience in the United States as well. So our next generation, our youth, can learn and have the Armenian teachers in their schools. So that is why this also is important, not because we have one in Antilles, in Lebanon, but it is important to have these kind of courses in the United States as well. The next one, of course, that His Holiness highlights is very familiar to our American culture and everyday life, is higher education. All our young generation, young people, they go to colleges and get the degrees and specialize in different things. So His Holiness highlights that it is also important for our community to include our youth who go to colleges, who get their diplomas, who get their studies in higher education, and be involved in our community, Armenian community. Not being part of the world outside of the Armenian life, but being part of our Armenian community. And he highlights and says, in today's society, specialization has become crucial to addressing issues, developments, crises, and plans. Amateur approaches are only practical in some facets of life, while dedication and preparation are essential. Specialization is just as necessary. In addition to community organization aimed at developing human resources, we believe that higher education is an essential and complementary component of human formation. So we know, and I said that in the United States, it is very familiar for us, all the college students, all our kids, they go to colleges, they graduate. But this higher education is not just having kids being graduated, going to colleges, receiving diplomas, but also inviting them to serve our community, to be part of our community. That is why His Holiness emphasizes as one of the important stages of having human resources and forming our young youth for our communities. The higher education is very crucial and important. And in his message, he highlights this last one thing that I want to read. He says, naturally, living in different conditions, we cannot expect the new generation to pass through the mentioned milestones of human resources formation. Self-study also gives an opportunity and can have an important contribution to the formation of a person. In all cases, it is imperative that the young Armenians, men and women, imbued with spiritual, moral, and national values, and armed with professional education, make themselves valuable in Armenian life, putting their education in the service of the development and empowerment of our nation. The diaspora urgently needs human resources. Therefore, the formation of human resources for the diaspora should become a priority. And indeed, His Holiness, as I mentioned, always looks at specific issues in our everyday life and highlights these issues, giving us a proclamation to focus on. And this year, as he proclaimed the year of the Human Resources Formation or Preparation Year, we all are invited to think about all the steps, all the categories that His Holiness highlighted that we saw today. So we are all invited to look into these things and work as a community, work as the church, work as a family. And as Deacon Shant mentioned, the Religious Council thought this will be and is important to share with our people, especially this Lenten season, highlighting the formation of human resources. And in the next coming weeks, we have a couple of themes and presentations that will highlight His Holiness proclamation. And I want to look into these themes which are specifically highlighted on our mission from our Bible, from the church's perspective, from our community's perspective, and leading us as people who live in diaspora, giving ourselves and having an exemplaries from the Bible, inviting us to be part of the community and serve in any way and many ways that we can. Therefore, the next week we will see the fishermen to fishers of men, and then we see the example of Joseph. Then we will examine and see the woman in the community's life, and then we will see our youth, the kids and children, bringing to the church's life, and then at the last session we will see an invitation. And the topic is, treat me like one of your hired hands. So all these are important topics that will highlight the importance of the formation of human resources and thinking about the proclamation that His Holiness invited us to focus on, especially for this year. We looked into the diaspora's life the past 2 years, and this year His Holiness invites us to work a little bit deeper, more of an active way, not just knowing and thinking about it, but acting. So it should be a proactive and not reactive. We should not wait that something happens and then we think how we can fix, but we should be a proactive. Work from now, educating, inviting our young generation to many older things, starting from the families, church, schools, and all the aspects of our lives that His Holiness highlighted. And being proactive is very important for our future. Therefore, going into the Lenten season, we will continue discussing the proclamation in many different ways, specifically in a spiritual way that will lead us through this Lenten season and invites us to be proactive in our communal life. May God bless you, and thank you for your attention.